Imagine soaring thousands of feet above the earth, the hum of the engines lulling you into a sense of security. Suddenly, everything goes dark. The plane's instruments, the autopilot, even communication with the outside world. Panic ripples through the cockpit as the pilots scramble to regain control. Little do they know, their aircraft is on a collision course with another jet, and with every passing second, disaster inches closer. The tension is palpable as the pilots desperately try to troubleshoot the mysterious electrical failure, their minds racing against time. They have no way of knowing that just 19 seconds stand between them and a catastrophic mid-air collision. This is the incredible story of how a routine flight turned into a life-or-death battle in the skies, where quick thinking and sheer determination averted a tragedy that seemed all but inevitable. On September 15, 2006, EasyJet Flight 6074 departed from Alicante, Spain, bound for Bristol in the United Kingdom. It was supposed to be an ordinary flight, just another leg in the busy schedule of a budget airline. The passengers on board, mostly British holidaymakers, were returning home after enjoying the last rays of summer sunshine. The flight crew, led by a 42-year-old captain with thousands of hours of flight experience, settled in for what should have been a smooth journey across Europe. However, lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly routine operation was a hidden danger. Earlier that day, the aircraft, a brand new Airbus A319, had encountered a minor electrical glitch on its previous flight. The issue was deemed manageable under the airline's minimum equipment list, MEL, allowing the plane to take off with one generator offline. The crew was briefed, the systems were checked, and Flight 6074 was cleared for departure. But what no one could predict was that this minor fault would soon escalate into a full-blown crisis at 32,000 feet. The first 85 minutes of the flight were completely uneventful. Passengers relaxed in their seats, perhaps flipping through magazines or gazing out of the windows at the patchwork of clouds below. The cabin crew moved through the aisles, offering drinks and snacks, their demeanor calm and routine. In the cockpit, the captain and first officer maintained their vigil over the instruments, the hum of the aircraft systems providing a reassuring backdrop to their work. The flight seemed as ordinary as any other, but all of that changed in an instant. Without warning, a loud thud reverberated through the aircraft, jolting both pilots to attention. The cockpit lights flickered and then died, plunging the flight deck into sudden darkness. The captain's display screens went black, and the autopilot disengaged with a warning chime that sent a chill down their spines. The aircraft, which moments before had been cruising smoothly, was now essentially flying blind. The captain quickly handed control of the aircraft to the first officer, whose side still had functioning instruments. While he began trying to diagnose the electrical failure, their first realization was perhaps the most chilling. The radio was dead. Cut off from all communication with air traffic control, they were unable to report their position, altitude, or even the fact that they were in distress. The transponder, which broadcast the aircraft's location to ground radar, was also offline. In the eerie silence of the cockpit, the enormity of their situation began to dawn on them. They were completely isolated, with no way to navigate, communicate, or call for help. Unbeknownst to the crew, their aircraft was drifting off its intended flight path, heading directly into the path of an American Airlines Boeing 777. Meanwhile, on the ground at the Brest Area Control Center, air traffic controllers were growing increasingly concerned. They had suddenly lost radar contact with EasyJet Flight 6074, a development that suggested something had gone seriously wrong. When repeated attempts to reach the aircraft over the radio failed, the situation escalated from concern to outright alarm. Scanning their radar screens, they realized with horror that Flight 6074 was on a direct collision course with another plane, an American Airlines Boeing 777. With no way to communicate with the EasyJet crew, the controllers were left with one desperate option. They had to instruct the American Airlines flight to descend immediately. The tension in the control center was palpable, as the American Airlines crew received the urgent order to descend. Despite not having visual contact with the EasyJet aircraft, the descent began. Seconds felt like hours as the two aircraft hurtled toward each other. Then, just as the American Airlines jet was leveling off at its new altitude, the crew caught a glimpse of the EasyJet plane, a flash of orange and white passing directly overhead. The two planes had come so close that the unthinkable had nearly happened, but a disaster was narrowly avoided. For the EasyJet crew, the crisis was far from over. They were still flying blind, with no communication and no idea how close they had come to disaster. Running through every possible option to restore their systems, they finally decided to switch the transponder to the backup system. Miraculously, this worked, and the aircraft's position was once again visible to air traffic control. Controllers at the breast center breathed a small sigh of relief, but they knew the plane was still in a precarious situation. Back in the cockpit, the EasyJet pilots were weighing their options for an emergency landing, ultimately deciding to continue to Bristol despite the challenges posed by the short runway. As the aircraft neared Bristol, the tension in the cockpit reached its peak. The first officer began the descent manually, and the crew tested the flaps, relieved when they deployed as expected. But when the captain pulled the lever to lower the landing gear, nothing happened. In a last-ditch effort, he activated the manual gravity extension system, and the landing gear slowly descended and locked into place. With the runway now in sight, the first officer engaged maximum reverse thrust and applied the brakes upon touchdown. The aircraft screeched down the runway, finally coming to a stop just before the runway's end. The cabin erupted in cheers as passengers, unaware of the drama, celebrated what they believed to be a routine landing. On the ground, the emergency crews who had been standing by rushed to the aircraft, expecting the worst. But as the pilots powered down the engines, it became clear that everyone on board was safe. The crisis was over, and the passengers disembarked, still oblivious to how close they had come to disaster. It wasn't until later that the full extent of the crisis was revealed. Investigators discovered that a faulty transformer had caused the electrical failure, tripping the main bus and cutting off power to essential systems. The pilot's quick thinking and adherence to procedure had saved the day. This is the story of EasyJet Flight 6074, a routine journey that became a harrowing test of skill and composure at 32,000 feet. Thanks to the pilot's determination and a bit of luck, disaster was averted and changes were made to improve the safety of future flights. What do you think about the incredible events that unfolded that day? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales from the skies.